Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Revered elders, fellow devotees, and fellow spiritual seekers, I take this opportunity to wish you all a very happy Jayanti today. This morning in the ashram, we celebrated Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi's 146th Jayanti with the usual solemnity and festive spirit of celebration. I take great happiness in joining you all to celebrate the occasion with the global satsang. I offer my respectful thanks to Sri Ramana Maharshi Heritage and its president Srimati Sunita Parashuraman and the dedicated satsang group members led by Dr. Aruna Ramkumar for organizing this special global Ramana satsang on this sacred day. On the auspicious occasion of Bhagavan's Jayanti, my heartfelt wish for each one of you is the blessing of being part of a living and vibrant satsang group. Friends, a true satsang is not merely a gathering of fellow spiritual seekers. It is the silent upadesa that turns the mind inward and carries us towards Sat, our own ever-present self. I speak this from prior experience. I have been deeply fortunate to walk this path in the company of so many sincere devotees during my stay as a physician in the United States in the greater Washington area. Satsang was mine and our family's spiritual anchor. Amidst the demands of a rigorous profession, those gatherings became a wellspring that continuously renewed and energized my spiritual pursuit. Our family remains profoundly grateful for this association. Now, residing at Bhagavan's sacred ashram, I feel doubly blessed here. Every living moment is satsang, lived in the presence of earnest seekers drawn from every corner of the world. In the next few minutes, I invite you to reflect with me on what makes Ramana satsangs so uniquely significant and why they constitute an invaluable foundation for the practice of Atma Vichara. Friends, Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi presented to the world the most direct of all spiritual paths, Atma Vichara. It is expressed in one single inquiry, Nanyar, who am I? This inquiry requires absolute inwardness. It rejects ritual, external disciplines, and even conceptual meditation. These are all described as aids towards the final spiritual plunge pursuit of Atma Vichara. It demands that attention be withdrawn from all objects and returned to the very sense of I and to be established in the sense of the I. And yet, Bhagavan repeatedly emphasized the indispensable value of satsang. At first glance, this appears contradictory. If realization is to be gained by turning within, what role can external association play? Why did Bhagavan, who taught silence as the highest instruction, allow, nay, indeed encourage continuous satsang around him? The resolution, therefore, lies in understanding what satsang truly is. I like to reflect on the ontological meaning of satsang. Friends, the word satsang is not social. It is a metaphysical term. It constitutes in two words, sat and sangha. Sat implies and means being, reality, that which never ceases to exist. And sangha is association, contact, or proximity. Thus, satsanga is association with reality. Bhagavan cites in supplement to Ulladhu Narpadu a traditional verse. Satsangathal asatsangam nasamadayum. By association with the truth, sat, association with the unreal, that is asat, objects and thoughts is destroyed. With the destruction of objective association, attachments fall away. With the falling away of attachments, the mind itself subsides. With the subsidence of the mind, liberation while living or jivan mukti is attained. Here, satsang is not presented as a moral aid, but as a causal condition for the dissolution of the mind. As Bhagavan precisely says, without satsang there is no peace. Now, we could get from Bhagavan's words and lives three concentric level of satsangs. The innermost circle, the absolute, is abidance as a self, Atmanishta, the state of Atmanishta. This alone is perfect satsang. The next circle is the living presence of the jnani, the guru. Association with one who has no doership, no individuality, no ego. And the outer circle is association with seekers established in vichara, those whose primary orientation is inward towards the source of I. Bhagavan was explicit about the hierarchy. To know oneself is the highest satsang. But he immediately added, in effect, until that abidance is firm, external satsang functions as a stabilizing condition on one's path, on one's spiritual path. Friends, why was Bhagavan's silent presence so transformative? This is because he went to the root cause of the human problems, which is the ego. Because Bhagavan, in Bhagavan's experience and his teachings, the ego cannot sustain itself without the external aids or props which sustains its existence. For we know that the ego survives only through our reaction, through its recognition, and through conceptual exchange. In the presence of the jnani, none of these can sustain. Bhagavan did not confront the ego. He withdrew the condition necessary for its survival. And once the ego was destroyed, what remains is the eternal self-effulgent Atman, our human spirit in the highest, brightest form. So that is why silence, mauna, is not absence of teaching, but it is the highest form of spiritual instruction. Bhagavan states, mauna me upadesam. Silence itself is instruction. In Advaitic terms, the Jnani's presence functions as a non-dual mirror. When the ego looks into that mirror, it finds no second entity to relate to. Deprived of relational support, it weakens and gradually subsides. Friends, the obstacle to Atma Vichara is never ignorance of the question, but our age-old vasanas, habitual tendencies that continually project attention outwards. Bhagavan says in Nanyar, it is only because vasanas arise that the mind arises. Satsangs do not destroy vasanas directly, rather it starves them. In an environment saturated with inwardness, sense objects lose their urgency, thought streams lose momentum, and silence becomes natural rather than forced. This makes sustained inquiry possible. One truly goes from even a state of mindfulness to a state beyond the mind. Thus, satsang is not a substitute for vichara. It is a supporting condition that reduces resistance. Now, as we all know that most of the satsang groups came about in the world after the physical absence of Bhagavan. Why is that so? It's because Bhagavan himself was unambiguous on this point. Guru udalillai. The Guru is not the body. Therefore, the satsangs continues in three living forms and continues to grow all over the world. The number one is a spiritual satsang. Reading Bhagavan's word with inward attention is direct association with his jnana nishta. Number two is the silent assembly of seekers, sitting together without distraction, without display, without debate. There is a spiritual growth in satsangs. And the final one is inner abidance, turning attention towards the source of the spiritual eye is the eternal satsang. Bhagavan states succinctly, satsang means remaining in being. Friends, I'll begin to conclude. The paradox of satsang resolves itself in the end. For satsang is required only so long as one imagines to be separate from the Sat. When inquiry matures, the distinction between the seeker and the company, guru and disciple, and internal and external, all collapse. Bhagavan gives this final assurance. One who has come within the sphere or the ambit of the Guru's grace is never lost, like the prey in a tiger's mouth. Friends, let who am I be not just a practice confined to certain hours, but the silent axis around which one's life turns. In truth, we have never been outside satsang, for there is nothing outside the self. Final words. In my experience, an impactful satsang group has three hallmarks. First, the focus is on Bhagavan, our living Guru, and no one else. Members are drawn to his teachings. Chanting and social bonds we form are powerful and valuable, but it is the emphasis on the teaching that serves as our anchor, helping us to navigate the turbulent waters of samsara. Second, there is a natural ripening. Over time, members lose interest in gossip or mundane distractions. The quest becomes single-minded and the heart becomes quiet. Finally, the proof is in the pudding. When we live a true satsang, we live it feeling energized and spiritually joyful. We find ourselves longing for the next spiritual gathering, for we have tasted the elixir of life. Gradually, the noise of the world fades away and we find ourselves declining social invites, not out of obligation, but because we have discovered a much higher bliss, a permanent source of happiness. Om Namo Bhagavate, Om Shanti, Om Shanti. Thank you for your attention.